Well, it looks like the numbers have sort of evened out, so I'm going to get going today. Thank you again for joining us. This is the BlueLedge webinar series, and we do these webinars usually about once a month. They are about the industry, best practices, and about, how to get into the profession and be successful at the professions of digital court reporting and legal transcription. I have a panel of amazing experts today, so I am very happy to bring them to you. As I said, today's webinar is why certification matters, how to become certified in the fastest growing legal profession, and you guys will learn all about that today. Before you meet our panel, I have to introduce myself. My name is Benjamin Jaffe, and I am the Manager of Training and Development for BlueLedge. I have been now in the legal industry over 8 years. Before that, I worked in the multimedia industry. I was the former legal technology manager at Orange Legal, where I oversaw digital court reporting, videography, trial technology, e-discovery. I now sit on the AAERT board of directors, as well as am the chair of the communication committee. And so I'm very active in this industry and so happy to be able to talk to all of you today. Before we meet our panel, I just want to give everybody a little background because I do know you guys answered those questions when you registered for the webinar. So I do know some of you all are brand new to this industry. So I'm just going to kind of go over a little bit about the industry and why this is the fastest growing part of the legal industry. So right now there is a huge supply gap for court reporters. Traditionally, court reporters use stenographic machines. Sometimes they were called stenographers or machine court reporters, shorthand, all different names meaning the same things. There's been a huge decline over the last, I don't know, 10, 15 plus years in the number of these court reporters available in the marketplace. It's difficult to become a stenographic court reporter. I mean, what they do is very impressive. They type 200 plus words a minute, some of them up to 300 words a minute. They have to take down somebody who speaks fast, like I do, somebody with an accent, somebody who maybe speaks broken English, and take it down verbatim in the record. And so they're very impressive, but there are not as many of them available, and there are not people going to school necessarily for that these days. The numbers are dwindling, the number of programs being offered are dwindling, and that's created a huge amount of need in states like Florida, Texas, California, New York, Illinois, Ohio, North Carolina, but all over the country. Don't let this chart fool you. They are needed everywhere. And so there's definitely been this draw. And so what happened is there are three ways of taking down the record, at least recognized today. There's the stenography that we talked about, voice writing, which is sort of repeating into a voice mask whatever you hear, and digital court reporting and legal transcription, which is, what we're going to talk about and what our panelists are going to talk about. And so AAERT is the organization that governs that. And what they do is they offer membership and certification through their association. Their membership was established in 1995, and there are two different types. One for reporters, the people who are out in the field taking down the record, either in the courtroom or in, let's say, a conference room, or the transcriber, the person who then takes that recording and turns it into a transcript. Now, somebody can do both parts of that job, or somebody can do each one of those jobs individually. That often depends on who you work for, what scenario you are, how you're paid, those type of things. Now, when you get certified, you are required to recertify every 3 years, and those certifications start with a multiple choice test. And then the transcriber part actually has a practical with an up to 20-minute piece of audio that you would have to transcribe. And AAERT had a practical for the court reporting exam, and they're working to reinstate that to better that certification as well. It just wasn't possible, especially through the pandemic, but even slightly before that when they were redoing the exam and updating it. So with that little bit of background, I want to get into our panelists for today. The first panelist is Jillian Lawrence. She is the owner and CEO of Lawrence Court Transcription and Video. She is also a consultant with the National Center of State Courts. She is AAERT certified as a reporter and transcriber and has worked for many years in the court system as a manager, as a court reporter, as a transcriber, and she was a former president and board member of AAERT. Thank you, Jillian, for joining us. Next is Jenny Burke. Jenny is the president and owner of Busy Bees Court Reporting and Transcription. She is AAERT certified in both reporting and transcribing, as well as a Tennessee certified court reporter. She is currently the vice president of the AAERT board of directors and trained through the U.S. Navy to learn her skills that she uses every day. So thank you so much, Jenny, for joining us. Merritt Gilbert is the manager of digital learning operations at BlueLedge. She is really the person who helps structure and build all of the courses that we offer to prepare you for the CER or CET. She has been in this industry for over a decade now and is a Florida professional reporter, as well as is trained as a voice writer and practiced digital court reporting for many years, ran a department of that. And so thank you, Merritt, for joining us. Lastly, Jeff Sackheim, he is the Director of Digital Engagement at Veritex and the former Vice President of Diamond Reporting and Legal Video in New York. He has been in this industry for over 15 years, and he is a second generation in the court reporting industry after his mother, who was the owner of Diamond Reporting and is a well-known stenographer, and he attended the University of Arizona. So thank you, Jeffrey, for joining us.
Thank you.
All right, with that being said, I appreciate you guys joining me today. Even though many of these people on the webinar may have experience in court reporting and in legal transcription, I'd like each one of you to talk about your kind of experience, what you guys do in the industry, and what is digital court reporting and legal transcription mean to you. And I'm gonna start with Jenny.
Well, thanks, Ben. I would say, simply put, that legal transcription is the overall function of a legal transcriptionist to transfer audio into written documents. This is achieved with the skill, knowledge, and expertise of transcription, legal specifically, and just using the tools that you have available to you to get that record made into text.
Now, Merritt, Jenny talked about legal transcription. You worked for many years as a digital court reporter, so maybe you can define that and what sort of your role as the digital court reporter was.
So a digital court reporter, also known as deposition officer or guardians of the record, play a really critical role in our justice system. They capture what is said on the record, and then using high quality audio microphones and sophisticated software. They're also typing within that software, speaker designation, so the transcriptionist would know who's speaking at that time, and any other key phrases or proper nouns, types of things said on the record. They would annotate that. They're not typing verbatim. They are just typing, they're prioritizing what they type. So what they've captured in their software with what they've typed and what audio they've recorded is then submitted for transcription. And like Ben said earlier, a digital reporter can transcribe as well as capture the record, or they just do the front end of it and is sent to somebody else to transcribe.
Now, Merritt, you worked in the deposition market primarily, taking down legal proceedings, working for an agency. But Jillian, you've worked as an official court reporter and transcriber for the court system. Maybe you can talk about that a little bit. Jillian, you're muted.
Sure. Thanks, Ben. I worked in Florida state courts in a couple of different circuits, and centralized monitoring is actually what's predominantly used throughout much of Florida. And so we would cover court from a remote room where we would be responsible for covering multiple courts at the same time. And it's essentially the same software, the same procedures. There's just another layer of steps in that we would have to be taking notes and listening to multiple courts at the same time. We did cover things in person in court, so probably speaking to that would be more on point in this discussion. But we would go into court and we need to make sure that we actually have operating audio equipment, and we do a sound check and we take notes that are time linked to that exact point on the recording, so that later that audio can be retrieved, so a transcript can be produced. Sometimes it's to just produce an audio recording. And that's one of the words I've always loved in this industry, is that we are responsible for creating a record that's easily retrievable. And that is the job of the digital court reporter, to make sure that you have notes that we can find anything in that recording as quickly as possible and produce a transcript.
And Jeffrey, I know you oversee many digital court reporters in your role at Veritex. You know, this industry really dates back to the 50s and 60s. The first audio recordings were done, you know, in Alaska and throughout the country, you know, early days of bringing this in. Why to you is there so much of an emphasis on this industry today?
Yeah, so I think that for such a long time, most court reporting and transcription work was done by stenographers. And we don't need to make this a discussion about the shortage of stenographers, but to me, coming from a background of working for court reporting agencies, I experienced the shortage, the struggle to cover work firsthand. So since the number of stenographers began to decline, this really gave rise to different methodologies where you can maintain quality work executed by professionals, preferably certified, and get the job done the right way. There were always people and agencies focused on transcription, but not like I have been seeing in recent years, especially now that there's so much acceptance by clients of different capture methods as well.
Great. And so, I mean, you're right. This isn't about the shortage. It's really about the opportunity that is out there. And Merritt, you work with hundreds and hundreds of students, you know, every year, and really are part of the building of this industry. What would you say when you talk to a student is an essential skill that they need to have, or an attribute they need to have when coming into this industry? What would be those things that you would definitely tell them, hey, if you do this, you'd be great?
So great question. Some of the things might seem obvious, but I just can't stress how important being on time is. Being on time to the job. Could you imagine there's two attorneys, a witness, or if it's in court, there's a judge all waiting for you? Like, you just have to be on time as a court reporter because there's so many people waiting for you to be there to start. Or maybe the judge just goes ahead without you and then there's no record. Imagine how that would pan out. So you have to be on time. Submitting jobs timely is also important. It'll make sure that, you know, you're somebody that people want to work with, that you're reliable, that you can, they know you're going to get the job done. So another obvious thing is professionalism. you need to behave professionally, interact with the attorneys and the judge and the witness, everybody you come in contact with professionally, but also dress professionally. And just remember, you know, a smile when you meet somebody goes a long way. And one thing I would say is probably the most important attribute would be just feeling and totally understanding the importance of this job, the importance of that final transcript being verbatim and accurate so that our justice system can move forward with that transcript, because that transcript's used for many purposes, you know, through a case. And it's important that we do our job right as the digital reporter, and that the legal transcriptionist has all the pieces from the digital reporter to be able to transcribe an accurate transcript. And like something I used to think about when I would be submitting my jobs 10 years ago is like, I want the transcriptionist to be so grateful for all these special notes I made for them about what happened with Exhibit 3, and just being as detailed as I could to make sure that everything made sense to them and that the transcript would be perfect. So having that passion, I think, is a really important attribute.
And Jenny, you focus a little bit more on the transcription side and hire your own transcriptionist. So what are those attributes for a legal transcriptionist? You know, what would be something that would make them highly successful?
I'd say my first one, Ben, would be to have a really keen eye for detail. Like Merritt was saying with the log notes, that goes back and forth, and it is teamwork. And as much as a transcriptionist may be learning their client or their court reporter, the court reporter needs to learn the transcriptionist, you know. And the better the log notes from the court reporter and the information provided from the court reporter definitely makes our job easier on this end. I would say that another one would be that you're able to work well under strict deadlines. You
Amen.
know, yep. And you got, and not only with the court reporting side, but with the transcription side as well. So with that goes time management. I always tend to budget on the high side for how long it's going to take me to do something, and it's great if it takes me less. But don't overestimate and underdeliver. And communication. But I would say just right off the get-go is excellent computer skills and the willingness to learn. That would be probably my biggest thing.
Well, great, and thank you, Jenny, for that. You know, there is a lot of growth in this industry, and a lot of that has driven people to join AAERT and become certified. Jillian, I know you have been part of that organization for a long time. Maybe you could talk about who is AAERT and why they're important to this industry.
Yes. AAERT started back, I think it was 93. I know the certification was 95, but I remember in those days I lived in California and I did electronic court transcription. That was when it was tapes, before it was called digital. And I worked on a pilot project out of Los Angeles Superior Court, which was from the tapes. And I remember working on a daily in a Los Angeles courtroom with the woman that I did the work for. She owned the company. And she said, "Oh, I'm going to go to this meeting of all the people in this industry. They're calling it the American Association of Electronic Reporters and Transcribers." And I thought, wow, that sounds so interesting. And she went off to the first meeting. And then she came back and she told me all about it. And she told me that digital was going to be the thing of the future. And I said, "Well, will I need new equipment? I've already spent all this money on this equipment." She says, "Well, if you want to be in the business, you will." And, you know, she was always someone who was cut and dry. But it was a gathering of competitors who decided there needed to be in this industry a standard, you know, as in all professions, that if you could meet this bar, that you had this amount of knowledge and this amount of skill sets, that you could get certified within this country, and that same certification could be recognized throughout the country. And AAERT, within a very short time, came up with the first certification testing. And, you know, it's been a lot of work by a few people in the early days, but, you know, a lot of people did a lot of work. And I have seen that grow tremendously over the years. I have worked with people and had people work for me who I've said, look, you need this certification. You don't know that you're going to be in this job. You may not need it at this job, but your husband can get transferred next month, or you need to go live with a relative and look after them. And if you have this certification, it transfers across the country. And I have had people actually call me and say, thank you for making me do that. This is how I'm using it today. And I've had people retire who, you know, transcribe for us. And it's, you know, it's a valuable skill set.
And Jeffrey, I know you oversee a large group of court reporters, so you must be encouraging them for certification. And what does it mean to, you know, an organization like Veritex to have your reporters certified?
Well, it certainly means a lot. So first off, the certifications are recognized as the leading certification in this field, you know, for many courts and businesses. And when we see someone applying to the job who's certified, it means that they're coming already demonstrating dedication and knowledge of the profession. And in many cases, not just in Veritex, but other businesses, it's a pathway to finding more and better paying jobs. And it allows your clients also to see your skill level as well. And there's also a lot of companies out there that will not hire you unless you're certified.
So do you give a benefit to your reporters if they're certified? Do they get paid more, get more work, that type of thing?
Yes, they get paid more money.
And Jenny, do you see that in your work? Do you have access to more work if your people are certified? I know you contract with government agencies oftentimes, so do you get more contracts because of that?
I would say that my opportunities for contracts definitely open those double doors and created that opportunity for work with the certified, and just even starting out at just becoming a member first and then getting certified.
So definitely you had more. So when you're looking for somebody, you look for someone who's certified,
Most definitely.
or you bring them in and help them get certified, I would assume.
I do that too.
Now, Jillian, I know you work with the National Center for State Courts, you know, in a different way, right? You're working, you know, not just here in the US, but in other countries. And what do you talk to them about certification? Obviously, it's American, but, you know, does the standards communicate broadly, nationally and internationally?
Yes, the places that I've worked with the people, a lot of them have court reporting departments that have stenographers that are certified with the National Court Reporters Association. So it's a natural transition to then use the AAERT certification for the digital court reporting. In the courts that I have worked with, they do not have a digital court reporter. They have the clerk actually managing the court recording equipment, and then they have transcriptionists or court reporters producing transcripts from the recordings. So in that case, that's the CET certification that we push for. And, you know, people have come to conference or been offered the ability to do that. So that it's something that we try to put out there as the recognized certification internationally. And I know in the past, I was involved with getting Canadians involved. So over the years, we've had a lot of Canadians involved. There were a lot of Australians involved because of FTR and the connections. You know, there were a lot of connections made, and Australians would come to AAERT. So there's been a lot of interaction internationally with AAERT.
So Merritt, I know you're working with students who are interested in certification. And so what steps does somebody have to take? Let's say somebody is just learning about this industry in this webinar today. What steps do they have to take to prepare for and become certified?
So the first step is becoming a member, a professional member of AAERT. And that is $125 per year to be a member. And then to take the test, to take the exam, you have to have eligible for notary commission. You have to have 1 year experience as a reporter or transcriber, but that experience can also be, instead of 1 year, if you don't meet the 1 year requirement, you can have a letter of recommendation from an AAERT member or an employer, or you can submit a certificate of completion from one of AAERT's approved courses. BlueLedge, the program that we train on, is an approved, has approved courses for both exams.
Great.
And then as far as preparing, I can go into that as well, unless you want to
Sure.
flip that.
No, please.
Preparing, so Ben mentioned how there's a knowledge test, and it's 140 multiple choice questions, and you have 2 hours to take it. So I'm just going to start there. Both for the CER and the CET, you need to know vocab. And let me rewind a little bit. AART has a wonderful best practices guide on their website. And if everything in there is going to be covered on the test, or vice versa. But it's a wonderful, wonderful tool when you're preparing to take the exam. And AART has pages on their website. One page is called Preparing for Exam. So lots of tips on there, sample questions and all of that. But definitely you want to know all your legal terminology, your Latin terminology, medical, business terminology. You want to understand the state court system, how they're structured. There's a section on professionalism and ethics. There's a ethical code that AART has, as well as all English. When you're talking about CET, it's all the English, grammar, punctuation, all of that, as well as formatting is big. Formatting the transcript. You want to know all about federal formatting. If you're not familiar with federal, maybe you transcribe for state cases, you want to be practicing with federal before you take the practical version or practical exam. But there'll be questions about federal formatting on the knowledge test. I know this is a lot of information, so I might just stop there.
Well, great. And you did mention, one of the ways that you can obtain a lot of that information is through one of the approved programs. BlueLedge is an approved program. There are others out there, and an approved program has to go through a very rigorous examination process where they're looking at your content to make sure it really gives somebody that baseline knowledge of understanding of what it means to be in this industry. And it's just like any academic venture. You're going to get that academic book knowledge, from either the best practices guide, from a course, from online resources, and then you're going to have to work with a company for that hands-on experience to, get that field-based hands-on experience. Even the ones that focus more heavily on, hands-on experience, you still need it in the field. There's nothing quite like being there with an attorney or getting your first actual transcript that's going to go in front of a judge. It's just a very different experience than doing samples, and that's okay. People are going to, get that experience in many different ways. Now, Jeffrey, I know you work to, we partner with you guys to help with some of the training, but you guys work to give them that experience through your program of hiring people on. Maybe you can talk about some of that experience of when somebody's coming into the industry, what are they getting, and how does that lead to ultimately getting out in the field and taking jobs?
Yep, absolutely. I can talk to that. So the first thing that that we want a candidate to do after an interview process is we look for a certification from an AART approved school. It's generally BlueLedge because we partnered on that. And then after that, we require them to purchase their equipment to become a digital reporter. The equipment is all to the standards of the AART best practices guide. And then we have our own internal training program where, you're taking the hardware and the software and everything that you learned from the program and putting it together and really becoming a practitioner, learning how to put the standards of a court reporter. Within our training program, a lot of it is self-taught, but we also do mock depositions that they have to pass, as well as assessment exams. And then after that process, the candidate will work with their local market and shadow live depositions and really get a feel for what it's like to actually be in a deposition room. The speed, what could happen, how it could become a little contentious sometimes, and really get some mentorship and feedback from a working court reporter. And then after that, when we get good feedback from the working court reporter and we feel like the candidate is confident, we then hire them and begin working them.
Great. And just getting back to certification, Jenny, I know you have both of your certifications. Maybe you can kind of put somebody in the shoes of a test taker. What experience are they going to have as they take that test? Is there, what are they going to do? Is it a remote proctor? Are they going in person? What are their experience going to be?
So their experience is going to be that they would will become a member. And then once you're a member and you have the experience or meet the requirements, you go onto the website and you can register for the test there. And then they're going to put you in contact with you're going to get linked to the testing agency. It is offered 24/7 and it is remote. The details for what you would need to do, they are proctored tests, but nobody comes to your house or anything. It's all done over the computer. So, and then if you're doing the written knowledge, I believe you're told right at the end or shortly thereafter. And then for the CET, because with the practical, there is a human evaluation and assessment of that test. So it usually is about 4 weeks before you find out about the practical for the CET. Both of the tests are $275. So if you want to take the CER, it's $275, and the same for the CET, and you get the benefit of taking the practical for the same price with the CET. And just my only advice for it is just be relaxed, be confident, and do your best.
Definitely good advice. Being prepared and being relaxed and knowing that you're going to get it done. I can appreciate that. Jillian, when going into that practical portion, I know you do a lot of transcription. What does somebody need? What should have they reviewed? What should they be focusing on? Do they need any particular piece of hardware, headphones, or anything like that? What should they be prepared to bring into that type of test?
Well, it would be just as in real life, someone is going to need to be sitting in front of a computer, your laptop or a desktop, and you're going to need to have your software to play the recording. I assume it's still an FTR recording for the test. Okay, it's been many years since I took it, but anyways, so you have to have FTR player on your machine, which is a free software, and you will load the player with the audio. This is something you would practice in advance so that you would know how to load your audio for this test. you would have your Word or your Word Perfect or whatever the software is open for you to be able to produce a transcript. And I'm going to have to rely on Jenny or Merritt here. Did they give you a template to get started?
This is Jenny. They do provide on the AAERT website. There's sample audio, there's a link to the player. There's also different formats of the template. So you could get, if you're practicing in WordPerfect, there's a WordPerfect, there's a Word. I believe that there's something with a CAT template, which is stenography. But those are all, that's a very good resource that's ought to prepare you as well on the website.
Right, but when you go to start the test then, is it from a blank screen or is it from a beginner template for the test?
The beginner, my belief is that whatever's on the website is what they are provided.
You can have your template ready to go, but you will get the case information and all the things you need to fill out. Title page, appearance will come at the time of the test.
Right, so you'll practice with it, but then when you get started, you can have it set up, but you're only going to have the information to put into this transcript, because on your cover, you're going to have the name of your case, the case number, you're going to have to title what type of proceeding this is, the date is going to have to be there. These are all things you're going to study in advance so that you will know where to put those on this transcript. You're going to have to list who the attorneys are that appeared. You're going to have the location of the courthouse. You're going to have an index, which is going to be an index of, you're going to have to study what things are going to be expected on this index for things that happen throughout the proceeding. And you're going to have where exhibits are marked, what page those are on. And all of these things will be included on this transcript. Every single one will be on here somewhere. And then you're going to be transcribing. So you're going to have your headset on, you're going to have your software up, you're going to have your foot pedal, and you're going to transcribe what is said. And you're going to transcribe it into your transcript. And then you're going to have to proof this entire transcript. And it's always recommended that you audio proof this so that you can see that you actually did get this correct.
Great. And so, obviously getting your certification, we all find very important. Most of us on this call are certified or work with certified people on a daily basis. But, what does it mean to others to be certified? What does it say to the lawyer population, the paralegals, the videographer you might be working with to be certified? Jeffrey, I'm going to pose that one at you.
Yeah, sure. Well, I may have mentioned this earlier, but being certified really demonstrates dedication and knowledge of the profession and puts anyone that you'd be working with, whether that be the client, videographer, really at ease and confident that you are a trained professional who can do the job the right way, and really at the top or the forefront of your profession. And I will also say that there are some states where you have to be certified in order to work. So it's really the only pathway, or one of a very few pathways, in order to actually being able to work. So you do have that badge and a little bit of that authority when you walk into the room that you are certified and able to be there.
I'd like to jump in real quick. I
Sure.
think that I would say that, just like you said, Jeffrey, the badge, it's a commitment to the excellence in the industry, the standard practices, the best practices, and going above and beyond in some cases, and getting the job done, doing a good job, and just that commitment to that standard of excellence.
Yep. And just to follow up on that, that's even why I encourage reporters who work in states where you don't need a certification to still get it. So you have that badge of excellence and work to those best standards. And like I say, many companies still find it desirable or required, even if you're looking to work in a state where certification is not a requirement to be a court reporter or a transcriber.
Well, and Merritt, you're in a state where both national and state certification is optional, but you have both. Maybe you can talk about why you went after both, and what was your process to get state certified on top of your AAERT national certification?
So I chose, like Ben said, it wasn't a requirement for me to get certified, but I hold value in this profession, and I know it just says a lot about my skills. When I sign transcripts, it's my initials go after my name, Merritt Gilbert, comma, CER, comma, FPR. So if FPR is the state certification I hold in the state of Florida, through the state association is called Florida Court Reporters Association. And not all states have a state certification process, and this one's an optional one in Florida. And it just was important to me, and I actually learned a lot. Both times I had to prepare. I'd been working as a digital reporter for a little bit of time before I got certified, and I felt like there was, you get better when you have to learn things that maybe you don't experience on a day-to-day basis. So, and also you have the continuing education we haven't touched on, but is very important. Once you become certified, you have to have continuing education hours. And so for AAERT, to keep that certification, every 3 years, you have to submit 30 hours, please
30,
correct me.
30
Yeah.
hours worth or 3 CEUs worth. Each hour of CEU generally translates to 0.1 CEU credit.
And those I just find so valuable, having to push myself to find learning opportunities to get educated in something I may not already be aware of. So there's a lot of different continuing education courses that AAERT provides, and then there's others listed on their website as well.
And Julian, you also are Florida and nationally certified, so you definitely have taken those extra steps yourself. But Jenny, I'm going to jump to you because you're licensed in the state of Tennessee, and you had to go through a licensing process to be a court reporter there. Maybe you can talk about going through that process just a little bit.
In Tennessee, to be a court reporter does not matter on the methodology. It is just fulfilling that requirement. It is a licensure, so it is done through the state. You need to obtain your notary first, and then submit your application to the state, and they will, I believe you do have to submit along with that you are AAERT certified, and also where you have completed your training. So that was something that was a little bit unusual. And then they adopt all of the credits from that you receive for your recertification periods. They reciprocate the CEUs to Tennessee, so you don't have to do an additional. And that is one thing about the industry too, is you might be a member of state associations, the National Association, of course, AAERT, but a lot of those share CEUs. And by sharing CEUs, meaning right now in the industry standard is 30 hours of CEUs in a 3-year period. So just equals 10 hours of training or CEU credit in a year.
And things change in this industry, every industry, with technology and different software that's coming out that makes our jobs easier. We're better at it. For it, the continuing education is wonderful because we have to keep abreast of what's going on in the industry.
That's right. And to follow up on that change from kind of what Jenny was saying is that some of the state laws are also amended from time to time. So I always encourage people to, read their own state certification rules and requirements, because I know that I learned a few weeks ago that Tennessee does have reciprocity with, I believe it's California and Texas and maybe Michigan. I could be wrong about that, but I think it's Michigan. So if you are a certified reporter in one of those states, you can actually use that to become a certified reporter in Tennessee, which I think is quite wonderful. And we'll probably be seeing more and more of that as time comes and people are a little bit more mobile in this new gig economy.
And I have something to add to that too, Jeffrey, when you were saying that about being aware of how the rules change. Like Florida is probably well known within the industry as not requiring certification. However, most of the state courts require court reporters to be certified. And, I was involved with drafting the court reporting rules, and it does have the best practice is for the certification. It is up to each circuit chief judge to be able to determine whether it's required, but it is a best practice. And then I was involved quite a few years ago. We made 2 stabs at it. I have to back up a little bit, but many years ago, it's established that there would be a court reporting board for the state of Florida, but it's an unfunded mandate. So it does exist. And at any time, like Jeffrey's referring to, at any time that could change. And so we made 2 stabs again at it to try to get a required state certification in Florida. And I represented digital court reporting. There were stenographers and a voice writer on it. And we, we went back to the Supreme Court and we had a hearing and we tried to get it through. None of our work so far has worked, but I know that sometime it's going to. And so, like Jeffrey said, if you can be prepared to be your best professional self for whatever those new rules will be.
Well, and that is an interesting topic because the rules are ever changing. We now are having remote depositions, notary laws are ever changing. States that were very restrictive have seen shifts both in opinion and in legislation around that. We definitely have seen, the utilization of things like stipulations and all sorts of different ways that we have just seen an explosion of change in this industry over even the last couple of years, and the pandemic really amped it up even further. But certainly there is change and there's going to be change, and that's why re-education and being part of a national association and staying up to date and working with people who are up to date is very important. So I guess I'm going to leave this sort of last question for, if people are interested in getting started in this industry, what should they do? And Jeffrey, I know you're hiring, and I'll let everybody answer this, but I'll start with you since you're always begging me for more people to join your ranks. So, what would somebody who's interested need to do? What should they do, in your
Sure.
opinion?
Sure. Well, there's a few things that they could do since it is such an in-demand career right now, both digital reporting and transcription. So I would say first step would be maybe to go to the AART website. Really a wealth of knowledge, links to programs and schools. There's a robust FAQ section. They can also go, since they're already on the BlueLedge webinar, go directly to BlueLedge for some information, or they can go to individual agencies. They can reach out to Veritext and my information could be shared. And I can speak to someone about different pathways that they could take and different opportunities that are out there. So I think really get out there. There's so much information on the internet and so many places they could go, and they don't have to just go to one place, really information gather.
Same question to you, Jenny.
I would say absolutely do your research. I know that there are lots of links to be able to try out some things to see if you even want to um, go further, like on the BlueLedge website when you're looking at their courses. I would say also too, um, don't you're going to need practice and experience to be able to confidently and pass the certification. So look at places where you can get experience, whether that be shadowing, as Jeffrey said, or shadowing on the transcription side as well. Get that on the job training is what I would say in addition. And study your vocab.
That's
And,
right.
and
I
to
would
you,
say
Jillian?
order that book. I would say go on to the AAERT website and order the best practices manual. And, back in the day, there weren't any schools. And, like Merritt said, if you study this book, what we used to always say is if you know everything in this book, you will pass the test. And, that's what I did. That's what was there back then. It's not an easy test. It does take studying, and some people are better at self-study than others. I think there's a huge advantage to taking a course through one of the approved schools. And but I think the first step is getting that manual, studying it, and trying to understand this profession. See if people will talk to you. Reach out and try to talk to people about what they're doing, and try to understand if you're a like-minded person who may even like this job or not. And most of the people in this industry will tell you, the good things and the bad things. And whenever I interview, I always say this is an exciting profession. There are great things about, this job, and some of the stuff you hear is wonderful. There are also, it can be so boring. You need to sit there all day long and listen to a mold inspector talk. And, can you really sit there and listen to this all day long? That is part of the job. So start talking to people, see if this is something you'd like to do.
Well, and I agree with you, Julian. Anytime anybody asks me, I talk about interesting, I talk about, exciting, I talk about the growth. But I also want to point out this is not a get rich quick scheme. This is not one of those situations where you're going to, instantly make millions of dollars, or nobody should think that at all. This is an industry that takes work, it takes experience, it takes training, it takes, years to develop your skill. It is a profession, right? I mean, you are working in the legal system as a professional responsible for, maintaining the integrity of that record. But at the same time, this is not something that, you're instantly going to be making six figures. This is something where it takes time and effort. And, I'll leave the last comment to you, Merritt. Finish with whatever comment you want after all of that.
Something I did want to touch on a little bit. So I'm glad you gave me the mic. That's right.
I'm gonna be sorry, aren't I?
It's quick, I promise. For transcription, I know I talked about passion with the digital reporting side of it, but with transcription, yes, you have to sit and concentrate for long periods of time. You don't have as much social interaction sitting in front of your computer transcribing as you would as a digital reporter, talking with clients, witness, all of that. So you have to be okay with not having that social interaction, concentrating for long periods of time, but also have a passion for the English language, like all those commas, like loving knowing when it should be a semicolon, or all the formatting. And like one of our instructors at BlueLedge, she said this to me probably 10 years ago, and it stuck in my head. She calls transcripts beautiful when she's done with them. Like she thinks that they, are perfect because she's followed all the rules, and she literally thinks it's beautiful. So I always think that's the best type of transcriptionist, where you can have pride like that over your great, English skills. So
It is an art, Merritt. I would also say that for legal transcription, and I don't necessarily know on the court reporting side, but on the legal transcription side, there are so many different topics. So if something does bore you, you can always move to something else. Or if there's a topic that you can't handle, you can find something else. There's so many, it's like going to a library. You can pick what you want to specialize in. I specialize in juvenile cases. So that's where my passion is. And that's where I keep my love for the job.
Yeah. And it's great. I mean, this is one of those areas that you can find things that interest everybody. I always enjoyed the medical malpractice cases. I thought when they got down into how they cut things and got so microscopic, that was just so cool. But, you know, with that being said, that's the end of sort of my prepared bit. And thank you so much to the panel. But we are going to open it up for questions. There is a QA pod. We have a few questions already that I'm going to read and ask to the panel. But if you have specific questions, please drop them in the QA pod. I will try and get to as many of them as we can in probably the next 10 minutes or so. I have to be respectful of our panelists' time, but after that, I will we'll try and get as many of these as we can done. So the first one that I see here is the reporter written exam the same as the transcriber written exam, or are they two different multiple choice exams? And Merritt, I'll give that one to you.
They are different. So the reporting one would have more questions about microphone placement, types of microphones, channels of audio, that type of more procedural stuff on the reporting side. And then the transcription knowledge exam would have more questions on punctuation, grammar, audio, listening to audio, and picking the correctly typed out sentence, that type of thing.
The next question, which I'm going to sort of answer, is how much does a legal transcriptionist get paid when certified by AART? You know, because this is a group of professionals, we're not going to dive deep into the exact payment amounts or things like that. That wouldn't be, you know, good because there could be competitors here and all of that. But what I would say is, you know, you can do your own research. We have a job board on our website, blueledge.com/jobs. Reach out to employers, ask how much they are paying, talk to them. It may also depend on the type of work you're taking. If you're taking work from a court versus depositions versus versus police interrogations, all different type of work definitely pays differently. The thing that is generally consistent is that almost all of the work is going to be paid either by the page or by the minute, which does generally equate to each other. But so it's generally contract work based off of what you're supplied and or what the final output becomes. But so you have a reference. So if somebody says X number of dollars per minute, that's a pretty typical way to receive, you know, an instruction of how much you'd be paid, or by the page. A lot of people will say it's either 40, 50, or 1 to, you know, 40 pages to an hour, 50 pages to an hour, something like that. Maybe for people who talk fast like I do, it would be, you know, 60 pages to an hour. But definitely you can kind of think about it in that way.
And
Yes.
clarification, that's audio length of time, not how long you're working on it. So I just wanted to
Sure.
clarify that, you know, where some people might think, oh, I could make over whatever the amount is. And we talk in pages and minutes, and that means minutes of audio.
Yes, very
So
good
efficiency,
clarification.
the more efficient you are, the more you can make per hour, per your hour.
Yes.
Yes, definitely. And that, you know, plays into quality of audio and your speed, what you're doing. And that actually goes into one of the next questions. Are text expanders allowed on the practical exam? And I believe that is true. Does anybody back me up? I believe you can use text expanders, you can use a steno machine, you can be a voice writer and use a voice mask, and CAT software, which is computer aided transcription software. You can bring what you would normally use to the table. I even know that they're considering for the future if some of the ASR platform type things for maybe changing the test to allow for that to be utilized. So they're definitely keeping up with the technology and allowing for the efficiencies that you would use at home to be applied to the test. So if you have something specific like that, definitely you can email AAERT. It's real simple, AAERT@aaert.org, and they're going to answer any question you have. And if you are bringing something to the table for an exam, let them know, and they'll take care of that. The next one is about the testing schedule. Jenny, I think you already touched on this, but why don't you, I'll let you say it again. When can somebody take a test?
They can take a test 24/7. After you register, you will be register and pay for the exam. The testing company will contact you. It is not, there is a it is a process. So it's not like you can become a member today, register for the test tomorrow, and take the test the day after that. You do have to allow for the processing and verification in between all of that.
Great. And do you need to become a notary? Jillian, is a notary required, or,
The language has always been, you have to be eligible to be a notary in your state. And one of the things that does is it covers a lot of background, that you would have to pass a background check to be a notary. So therefore, if you wouldn't be able to pass a background check, you would not be able to be certified with AAERT.
and to be clear, every state's notary laws are different. Some states allow you to have misdemeanors, other allow you to, if you have not committed a crime, others is, it's any crime that does not, include dishonesty. I'm not trying to encourage, committing crimes. I'm just saying every state's rules and how and their types of background checks are slightly different. So definitely check in your state about what their requirements are. Merritt, I know you are heavily into and engaged in the development of the coursework for BlueLedge. And this question is the BlueLedge course a substitute for the best practices guide?
I always say to students when they ask that to encourage them to get the best practices guide. Everything that would be tested on is covered in the BlueLedge approved courses. So yeah, but I love that best practices guide. Like Jillian said, like that's what I learned. I just studied it from front to back a lot, and but everybody learns a little differently. So.
Definitely. And as Mary said, everybody learns differently, and certainly everything is in the BlueLedge course, but sometimes it's nice to just have a reference manual you can walk away with and that you can study in different places at different times and look back on and all of that. Gonna put out a last call for questions. If there's any more questions, now is a good time to ask. If not, I will thank our panel one last time. Thank you so much, Jeffrey, for joining us, and Jenny and Jillian and Merritt. Thank you all for being here today. And I really appreciate it. I haven't seen any questions while I've thanked you, so I'm going to let everybody go. And thank you guys for joining us, and thank you for watching this webinar.
Thank
you very much.
you.
Have a
Thank
good
you.
night.
Everyone.
Bye.
Have a great evening.